the New Orleans Pelicans. Don't look now, 4-game winning streak, and really playing some great basketball on both ends of the floor. Welcome in the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight to the Smoothie King Center. Christian Clark, NOLA.com, here to join us and talk all about it. Christian, we appreciate the time. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you today?
Doing fantastic, man. Really looking forward to getting some eyes on this Pelicans team tonight. This seems like it's going to be a really, really good test against a playoff team out of the East right now in the Cavs. We'll get to that game in a minute, but before that, mentioned kind of off the top there, 4-game winning streak, but what really catches the attention is the 3-game sweep of that road trip. What did you see from the Pels when they were able to go through finishing off with the Hawks, obviously on Sunday, but also the Sixers and the Raptors?
Yeah, I think just handling business against teams the Pelicans needed to handle business against. That 3-game road trip, they've got to play the Toronto Raptors without Scotty Barnes. They got to play the Philadelphia 76ers without Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, and then they got to play the Atlanta Hawks without Trae Young. Faced 3 teams without their best players, in some cases without their best 2 players. Those are games you need to win if you want to be a team that gets a top 6 seed in the Western Conference. The Pelicans did that. That's been really, I think, a characteristic of this team is different than in years past. Like, you know, there's so often, like, this team will go on road trips out east. It's like 3 they're supposed to win, and they go 2-1, or they go 1-2. They just find some way where there's a blemish. And I think that's the difference between this year's team and a lot of Pelicans teams we've seen in the past. They're just a little bit more serious.
Trey Murphy has obviously been at the center of this. I mean, look, he got off to a slow start early in the season, but down the stretch here, he has really, really come on. What kind of progress have you seen from him after the slow start to now, and is it at all surprising?
No, I don't think it's surprising at all. I mean, it's been an interesting season for Trey. I mean, I think people in the Pelicans organization were really excited about him coming into the season, and then he tears a meniscus in his left knee during training camp, or right before training camp, and that knocks him out for the first 20 games. I thought he looked great initially after coming back, and he missed a couple of games with some knee soreness and then struggled for a period of time after that. You know, what he's been able to do these last 2 weeks or so is, you know, the guy I thought the Pelicans were going to get this season. And Trey was, you know, almost a 50-40-90 guy last year. I think he finished 7th in most improved player voting last year. I mean, one of the more improved players in the NBA last year. And, you know, this is a guy who's got range out to 30 feet. I think that's what makes him unique as a shooter, not just three-point shooting, but the ability to consistently make shots several feet beyond the three-point arc, and athleticism too. I mean, there's a guy who finished runner-up in the slam dunk contest last year. I mean, he's really got some bounce. He's this intriguing combination of outside shooting, floor stretching ability, and athleticism at the rim.
Then there's Herb Jones. Man, it seems like every year we're having a conversation about Herb Jones, all defensive team, defensive player of the year. Like, eventually that's got to happen for him at some point. He's been a model of consistency there for the Pelicans. Willie Green, whenever he talks about Herb, whether it's in the post game or leading into the game, he talks about just the impact he has on everybody else on the floor. So, I mean, from your vantage point, from your perspective, what is that impact? Why is Herb able to have that on everybody else on the floor? Yep. Did we lose Christian? We lost him. All right, trying to reconnect with Christian Clark there. I mean, Herb Jones, y'all, he has been he's been awesome all season so far for the Pelicans. Christian, do we have you back?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you're talking about Herb Jones.
Yeah, Herb. I mean, it's just every year. I mean, we have the conversation about him and how just the model of consistency that he's been. And I was asking, you know, Willie Green always talks about the impact that Herb's able to have on everybody else on the floor with his play. From your perspective, what is or why is Herb able to have that impact on everybody else with his play?
Yeah, I mean, I think like one of the most surprising things about the Pelicans over the past 2 years is that they've been 6th in a row in defense 2 years in a row. I think if you'd ask people in the Pelicans organization before the start of last season, how do you think you'll be defensively? I think there's some question marks internally. I think it's been surprising to people in the Pelicans organization that they have been a top 10 defense 2 years in a row. And I think, you know, there's a lot of reasons why. But I think if you're looking at like the person most responsible, I think it's got to be Herb Jones. I mean, every single night, taking the other team's best player, he's really good on the ball, and he has been since his rookie year, but he's good covering for teammates too. And I think that's a lot of where his value is. Like, he's really reading where all the players are on the floor. And, like, he's just got this ability to kind of diagnose plays before they happen, to anticipate. And, like, if he sees one of his teammates getting beat, he just quickly gets over there, puts out that fire, gets back to his guy. Sees a guy get beat, puts out that fire, gets back to his guy. It's that over and over again that makes him so special. And I think just, a really beloved teammate too, like just a really selfless guy, humble guy. And I think that all defensive nod is probably coming this year finally.
Yeah, I mean, it has to happen eventually for Herb. I mean, he's just been incredible on the defensive end, really since he's gotten to New Orleans. Another big question that everybody always seems to bring up, and it happened again this year, or really around the All-Star break and coming out of it, is the lineups that the Pelicans like to send out there. For you, does it seem like they've kind of really started to settle in on how they want to use the guys that they have here down the stretch?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there was a period of time earlier in the season when there were some questions, do they need to change their starting lineup? I think the Pelicans starting lineup, it's just been okay if you look at the numbers this year. I think it's gotten a little bit better as the season has gone along, but they're at the point now where I don't think you're going to see starting lineup change. They've done some interesting things like start Larry Nance Jr. for Jonas Valanciunas to begin the second halves in some of these games here. But yeah, I do think they've settled on some stuff. I think their bench has the second best point differential of any bench unit in the NBA. It's a lot of these, lineups with Zion or BI out there and just a bunch of, kind of defensive-minded role players surrounding them. And that's been a pretty good formula for the Pelicans. They're really beating up on other teams when it's one of Zion or BI and, a lot of these bench guys out there.
All right, let's look at tonight's game. Of course, the Pels, they will welcome in the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cavs currently the third seed in the East, so you're going to get obviously good competition here. New Orleans looking for victory number 5 in this ball game. Looking at it right now, it looks like Evan Mobley will not be out there for the Cavs, nor will Max Strus or Ty Jerome or Donovan Mitchell. So when you look at this game tonight for the Pelicans, how do they go ahead and get win number 5 against Cleveland? Win number 5 in a row against Cleveland?
Yeah, the last I saw, Donovan Mitchell was questionable.
Okay.
I mean, that's obviously like a huge swing factor in this game. I think one of the matchups I'm really interested in is the Cavs have been starting Georges Niang at power forward. I mean, Niang is going to have to guard one of Brandon Ingram or Zion Williamson, and I guess unless they put Jared Allen on Zion. But I just think the Pelicans are going to have an advantage at forward based on who the Cavs throw out there. Like, I think it could be a really big night for Zion and BI just based on who the Cavs have been throwing out there at forward. And then, whether Donovan Mitchell plays, whether he doesn't, like the Cavs still have Darius Garland in there. I just think containing on the perimeter is always so important for this Pelicans team.
Give me a thought on this stretch as well that New Orleans is coming up. I mean, you have obviously the Cavs in tonight and then the Clippers. That's going to be a massive game on Friday because, I mean, New Orleans right now, I mean, talk about don't look now. They're 2 games out of the 4 spot behind those Clippers, and you'll get them in your building on Friday night. I mean, it's 2 games, so it might sound kind of crazy to even ask this, but I mean, is it realistic that the Pels can find their way into the top 4 of the West right now?
I think it is, and if you watched Timberwolves Clippers last night, Kawhi Leonard left that game with a back injury. He left the arena, which is probably never a good sign. I mean, I think. If it's a situation where Kawhi Leonard is going to miss a handful of games here, that certainly boosts the Pelicans' odds. Clippers have been interesting. They looked, they just got red hot earlier this season and really found their stride with Harden, and they've kind of cooled off since. And, I've gone from thinking, oh, man, I would want no part of the Clippers in a playoff series to liking the Pelicans' chances a little bit more. I don't know if I'd pick the Pelicans, but the Clippers do look a little bit vulnerable right now, and as we know in New Orleans, health is so important. If Kawhi's going to miss some time, I do think it is doable for the Pelicans to get in that top 4.
All right, that's Friday, so we got to get through tonight. Tonight's going to be a big step for him as well. Christian Clark here previewing it with us all. Covers the Pels for NOLA.com. He's on Twitter at @cclark_13. Y'all give him a follow. He does great work. Christian, we appreciate the time as always, man. Thank you, and we'll do it again soon.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.